I'm Toby Johnson from Runnymede Pianos. In this episode of In Tune, we're going to have a look at the history of the piano and its origins. I'll do my best to keep this as simple as I can whilst keeping it interesting. But an in-depth history into the history of the piano and keyboard instruments in general goes right back to the ancient Greeks. As many may guess, the first instrument with keys was the pipe organ. Back in the times of ancient Greece, to play a flute or brass instrument was for the lower classes, but the upper classes did like the sound, and the pipe organ was invented where each pipe was activated via stops and a keys. This was the foundations of a keyboard instrument. But you will notice the keyboard in this picture on this organ does not match that on a piano. I won't go into all the theories on the modern keyboard, but early keyboards included the harpsichord, which were for the wealthy. These were very elaborately decorated and came in both single and double manuals. The harpsichord is really recognized as the nearest ancestor with keys to the piano, as it both came in the elaborate grand form and also the spinet as seen in this picture. These were for the less wealthy and the smaller homes. The big difference between the harpsichord and the piano is that the harpsichord plucked the strings with quills, whereas the piano hits the strings with hammers. Other instruments included the clavichord, which also hit the strings, as well as the virginal, which came in both a single manual and also double manuals. These were more for the smaller homes. However, the issue with these instruments was a lack of volume and a severe lack in dynamic range. Even the clavichord, which struck the strings using a brass tangent, only had one volume. Inspiration was to come again from the lower classes with the gypsy instrument, the hammer dulcimer. This instrument, the performer will strike the strings using leather mallets, and this became inspiration for how they could create a keyboard instrument with a dynamic range. With this inspiration, there are a number of reports of people experimenting with a piano-style instrument where leather hammers would strike the strings, but recognition goes to Bartolomeo Cristofori, a young instrument maker in Italy who was hired by Prince Ferdinando de' Medici to maintain his instrument collection at the royal courts in Florence. Bartolomeo initially called his instrument the harpsichord, upon which you can play loud and soft. Later this became known as the forte piano, and then the pianoforte, and now the piano. A handful of his early instruments still exist, and some are in playable condition. Tragically, upon his death, Bartolomeo Cristofori never saw his instrument leave Italy, nor did he ever discover that the instrument was to have music written purposely for it. Once the Italians released the instrument globally, it became almost an overnight success, with various models coming to light, some of them being the Viennese instruments. The more expensive ones of these were elaborately decorated and could be fitted with instruments like drums and cymbals, which were operated via knee pedals and also foot pedals. Then we had the square piano, which was taking its origins from the clavichord and was built right up until the 1920s. Early upright pianos came in the form of the giraffe piano, These were designed to stand against the wall, taking inspiration from the harp. Whilst over in the United Kingdom, we had the tall back upright cottage pianos. All these instruments laid way for the foundations of the modern piano, which we know and love today.